Now we can start.
Okay, everybody, we're about to start. In fact, we are starting. This is the Battery Park City Committee of Community Board One. So you have some notice back there. My name is Jeff Galloway. I'm the chair of the committee. And we have 6 items on the agenda. We'll try to go quickly. But first up is Pamela Frederick, CFO, Battery Park City Authority, to give a presentation on this year's finances at BPCA.
And will that be on the screen?
Yes.
It will be.
Give me 1 sec.
Hurry up, Sarah. Clock is ticking. Steering.
Yeah.
Reverse. Okay, and that's good. That.
And I think it's pointing at the computer.
Anywhere.
Oh, anyway. Okay.
Okay.
All right, well, thanks everyone for inviting us here. I'm Pam Frederick, CFO for Battery Park City Authority. I know many of you, there's probably quite a number on the joining us virtually that I may not have met, and hopefully I will at some point. Every year we come and just give an update of what our results were from the prior fiscal year. Our fiscal year ends in October 31st. And so these numbers are reflective of our 24 and 25 results. We'll be back next year with 25. And so we often will just start here. I know that many in this room are pretty clear on our framework and the background of Battery Park, so I won't go into that. It's always a great interest. The revenues that we receive that support the authority, debt service, and then City of New York, which is largely their tax payments, is the ground rent under the leases, as well as pilot, which is payment in lieu of taxes. And they really represent the commercial and residential real estate taxes that would otherwise be paid directly to the City of New York. So just talking about that, generally the pilot is the vast lion's share of the revenues that we collect and the payments that you make under your leases. It represents about 80% of the overall revenue that we receive. And that's for, all building types. We also receive under the ground leases, the base rent, and that usually represents about 20%. Base rent and other revenues, I should say. And what happens to that is that money comes into the authority, and then we pay our operating expenses and our debt service. And then afterwards, we is what we call excess revenue, and that gets split in accordance with a settlement agreement that we have with the state of New York and the City of New York. The pilot portion generally gets paid into the general fund, the New York City General Fund, and that goes to pay for all the services that New York City, how they utilize their revenue. So obviously they use it for services as well as for buildings and their own capital expenses. We don't have a say in how that money is spent, but it is a pretty major flow through to them. But on the other hand, we're appreciative of the fact that we can cover the operating expenses in Battery Park City, as well as the capital and upkeep of Battery Park City before the money flows out, to then be controlled by New York City. So the second portion, the 80%, that pilot goes to the general fund, and then the other 20% goes to what's called the Joint Purpose Fund. And the Joint Purpose Fund in some ways has changed over time, and it's finally, I think, most people will feel that it's come back to what it should have originally been. And that is, it goes to New York City HPD to fund affordable housing. And that happened in the 2024 agreement, where it was agreed that that portion, the joint purpose portion, would go to fund 500 million in affordable housing. And that is paid annually from excess revenues, as I noted, after we've paid our operating and debt service costs. And then the status of that 500, prior to that agreement being signed in 2024, we had accumulated some funds that, and many of you will remember that prior to the 2024 agreement, we had a 2010 agreement. That was fully paid out. So once the funds on that agreement were completed, we started accumulating those. And that accumulation resulted in an initial payment upon signing the document in 24 of 140 million. And then in 24, later in, for fiscal year 24, it's paid out usually in February. We paid out 46 million, I need surgery on my so, but I can't see that well, but 46 million, I have it here. And then for fiscal year 25, which ended in October 25, we paid out in February an additional just under 54 million, resulting in a remaining balance of just under 260 million. So that's fast. Seemed like a large number when we started, but it's fast being paid. On average, we would expect to see that payment between 45 and 50 million. You can think of it that way on an annual basis, unless there was some unusual event that occurred that would result in us having higher costs and therefore lower payouts. But and you know, since I've been there, we've always paid pretty much in that range. And now for the authorities results for 25, let's start with the receipts. As we noted, we received the ground rent, pilot, and then we have another category, could be things like interest income. It'll be license agreements. It could be some programming fees. That generally makes up a fairly small portion of what we collect. And it's been 8% pretty much for the last couple years. And so and that's breaking it up by type. By segment, you look at commercial and the residential, they're getting closer to evenly split, and then the hotel makes up another 10%. And to everyone's pleasure, we're working on the 2 West building, which was the Wagner, having that renovated. We finished those, settled that issue in the late summer last year. And they are in the process of renovating that building. And so we'd like to see some revenues generated as soon as possible. So the commercial, as you can see, is 43, residential is 46, hotel and other makes up another 10%. And so we did see an increase in receipts. That was 382 million in 24, 389 in 25. And that difference generally was due to higher assessed values as well as slightly higher tax rates as well. For the expenditures, evens out, we have that broken up into for you to see 2 ways. One is the operating portion, what was spent on operations and debt service, and that was about 30% of what we generate, and then the other 62%. Oh, here we go. Let's go forward. The other 62% is what makes up what we flow to the city of New York in the form of, to the general fund, the 78%, which is about pilot, and then the joint purpose received about 22%. Most of the increase year over year was due largely to an increase in the excess revenues. But in terms of operating expenses, even though we saw increases in personnel, largely to do with making sure we had the sufficient staff in place to manage our large infrastructure project, and then increased security costs to ensure that the neighborhoods remain safe during the construction phase. And post, we just wanted to add to it during construction.
And wait, could you just repeat that again? I'm so sorry. I couldn't hear you, that last sentence or two.
Is that someone I know very well?
It is. I'm sorry, I'm not there in person.
I'm sorry you're not here, Justine.
Yeah,
Good to hear your voice though, and I see you on the screen now. Let me just go back. You're right, so, we were talking about where we saw an increase in the operating costs, and that was, in personnel as well as security costs. What I didn't put in there, some of the, increase in operating costs was also offset by reduction, in other, areas, such as some of the legal expense that, we had. So that went down last year, but in terms of year over year change, the one that stands out the most was, an increase in personnel as well as security. And that security is not just, what Pat and his team, and he'll give you an update later this evening, but it's also, we put in safety officers in school crossings and things like that to improve the security and safety for the residents, and particularly the children. That's what we were focused on. Okay. So what I'll move to is just a highlight of capital. The capital budget is pretty large. It is primarily, as you can see, related to the resiliency project, where on the south is becoming now, this button is very sensitive. I'm gonna put it down. The south is now heading towards completion, and the north is ramping up. And so we have fairly large portion of budget allocated to the south last year. Some of the upfront cost associated with getting the project launched, things like insurance and things of that nature. So a big part of the capital budget was allocated towards resiliency. And Eve will give you an update later on the south to let you know where that is as the person that funds it. I'm looking for that to wrap up this year. And so if we talked about resiliency next year, that would probably end up being a not quite solid green, because we'll have all the remaining closeout costs associated with the south. But the following year would probably be largely the green items for the Northwest. And then the other things is, just because we have the resiliency project doesn't mean that nothing else gets done. We still have other sustainability related projects. It could be, changing some of the lighting and the post. We have other site improvements and facility upgrades. Site improvements could be other safety concerns. It could be street design, lighting design, upgrading some, there could be electrical upgrade and things like that. General infrastructure generally falls in the bucket of things that would not have been a major project that we anticipated that needed to happen in a given year. So we allocate funding for that. And then we have an IT system and continue to maintain the parks and the parks equipment. The landscaping and things like that are not part of the capital budget, because that basically runs off in a year. more their long-term things. It could be some of their electrical transportation, service trucks and things like that. And for this year, we allocated, just under 35 million for those purposes. Those are allocations. I can update next year on what was spent versus what was budgeted. But that's for next year. And then in terms of a debt overview, we have a number, we historically have issued bonds every, 4 to 6 years. With the ramp up of the resiliency project, which involved pretty significant design cost. A lot of that was funded in 2019-23. We did a large issuance to fund the South, the construction of the South, and to start the design work for the North. And then in 25, we did a large issuance, that's the dark green circle, to start the construction on the Northwest. I also make note, historically, we would show you we would show you the fixed rate versus variable. The variable is becoming a much smaller portion of our debt. And that may change over time. We generally try to strategize on that. We no longer have any swaps outstanding, which would fix some of that variable rate. So all the variable that we have outstanding right now is a floating rate. We benefit as rates are lower, as they ramp up, then you lose some of those savings. But they are a relatively small portion on the variable rate of the billion that we have had outstanding at October 25. About 120 million of that was variable. So you could say just about 10 to 11% was variable.
So it's over $1 billion in outstanding debt.
Yes. At October, and then we also issued, that will increase as we continue to construct the Northwest. We do have, which historically, we started having a revolving facility back, and I think we started in about 22, 23 to bridge funding prior to doing the long-term debt issuance. When the long-term debt is issued, we then pay that down to zero. So we never expect to keep that amount, any amount on that outstanding, except in between bond offerings. As we get close to the issuance, then we'll pay it down once it's issued and goes back to zero. All right, and then in terms of sort of outlook, the projects, and then like I showed that the significant part of our spending really has been resiliency. That's pretty, very strongly supported by not only New York State, but of course, New York City. Many of you have been to the community presentations on resiliency and know that it's not just Battery Park. We're one of, I think, 6 resiliency projects that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that protect the southern portion, both on the east and the west side. Not all of them are funded, but they certainly are planned and necessary elements of resiliency protection for Lower Manhattan. And then I think I made note that the South project, we hope to have that done, and I'll leave it to Eve to update you on that this summer. I'm always thinking about, what are the financing needs as that winds down? Do we have sufficient funding to cover what was anticipated, and if there were changes? And we work with that team to ensure there's ample funding available to finish the project. It started in 2019 when we funded their design work, and then construction started in earnest in 20 with the funding generated in 23. And that should cover us, but for maybe a small amount through this year. The financing for the Northwest started, this fall, with, a $700 million, sustainability bond that, paid for, as I noted, that we do, well, we had we used a revolving credit facility to bridge us until we did this fall financing, so just under 200 million of that was for funding spent prior to that bond. And then the balance of it is to fund the upfront work that was done, some of the early work that was done on that project, and then to launch the construction, the full construction of the project. And so that's where all of that funding will go. We don't anticipate having, well, we anticipate maybe every 12 to 18 months, depending on what the construction plan and the drawdown schedule is on that project. We will fund to that schedule, with the next one anticipated in the first quarter of 27. And might be my, no, I have one more. Okay. Did we take it? Yeah, I guess we did. Yeah. So odd. There's a
Page number
page
13.
that's not in
Extension,
there.
and it got eliminated.
Oh, there it is.
Oh, okay. It was hiding.
It's so interesting.
Thing jumps.
Yeah, so it jumps around. Well, I will give you the recap of what that slide says. It basically, I just wanted to give you a sense of, Battery Park, we were very, I try to be very conservative in terms of how we approach, issuing debt. And we were in the fortunate position that we had fairly low debt given the amount of revenue that's generated. And that is really what is allowing us to, anticipate the funding of not only the South, but also the, Northwest project. And we have always been AAA, and we anticipate through completion of this project to remain AAA. We're structuring with that in mind. And I don't know why we can't show this particular picture.
We got a, yeah, for split
Forward.
second. And then so we know it's there.
It's fun.
I can show it.
There it is. I was thinking the.
Don't want to touch anything.
Oh, man. Good to go from the computer, they used to say. So we are AAA rated both by Moody's as well as Fitch. We anticipate that remaining throughout the construction of the Northwest project. As we go to get our rating and as we present the Battery Park City Authority to investors, we really hone in on a couple of key points that we're proven, and we have a proven history of strong economic resiliency. And by that, you guys have all lived through a lot of tragic events. And we've been able to, but, 9/11, we've made through the depths of COVID, and we continue to remain economically strong. We've never even had a negative outlook during those events. So I think that speaks volumes about how conservatively it's managed. And that will, I think, will continue to be a very vibrant community. It's a premier location in Lower Manhattan. It's AAA from a credit perspective, but also A-rated from a real estate, particularly commercial real estate, which I think adds to the vibrancy of the neighborhood. Having all of the offices filled, as well as the workers there to support the restaurants, as well as the shopping. So that all is, I think, an important elements of coexisting both residential and commercial, and both benefiting from the strength of each other. And then the last, couple of points, we have been working, and you guys saw, that we announced in, December, renewing, I should call it renewing, extending the lease for, Brookfield, which I think adds significantly to the credit strength of the authority to have them in place, very strong, one of the, I think, you know, globally, one of the strongest property managers, and I think that the Brookfield place has really benefited from their proactive management and how they've managed that office space through, you know, a pretty significant event. And so I take comfort in them having that lease extension, but it also means that we generate a lot more revenue that, again, not only supports what we do, the operating, what we do in the neighborhoods, but more importantly, it also supports the incremental debt that we're putting on associated with the resiliency, which everyone throughout the neighborhood benefits from. The last one is you know, resiliency. You may not, I don't know if it feels that way, but I talk about resiliency kind of across the country. I had conversations overseas as well, and everyone it's really covets this project because it's really something that many neighborhoods aren't able to not only initiate, do the studies on, but certainly to ramp it up, get it working and in place and funded. It is really an advantageous benefit to the community. It may not feel that way, but there are a lot of people who wish they were in the position of those who live and work in Battery Park City. And we're pretty proud of the work that's being done. And in fact, I will have some of the top municipal analysts and investors coming to visit us next week, and we'll be lauding the success of the South and championing what we're doing in the North, because it takes those investors to buy those bonds. And so we do a lot of work on that side as well. But, you know, we feel pretty proud of what's been accomplished and looking really optimistic about the forward look on what we're going to be doing with the Northwest. So, questions?
Sure we do. Justine, this is always her favorite subject every year.
Justine always knows everything in advance. She just wants everyone else to know.
Pam, you're so sweet. And you guys, excuse me all for not being there, but recuperating from hip replacement surgery. So pardon my grimaces and if I move around a lot, because I'm a little bit in pain. But anyway, Pam, if we could go back to your slide, and I think it was slide 3, where you broke out the ground rent and the pilot. Looks like 80% was pilot and it was, and 20% was ground rent. I think it was 3. Where do civic fees come in? Because you mentioned rent from the hotels, you mentioned all this, but you didn't mention anything about civic fees. And every condo
I'm gonna go to
and every
this one.
building pays civic fees. Keep going back.
Okay, one, I wanted to just stop on this page, because,
Yeah,
CFM,
well,
for
this one
instance.
works too, because it shows you
Okay.
ground
Yeah.
rent, pilot,
Yeah.
other, yeah.
Yeah, so in the other, you would have, civic facilities falls in there. Some of the other things are, we have marina fees, we have, interest income and things like that. They fall into that 8%, with CFM
I guess
being the.
Based on these slides, you're calling the civic facilities fees non-core earnings?
Other.
Just other,
I'm
and the
asking,
reason.
I have specific reasons for asking, so don't worry. That's why I'm asking, and I want it on the record, just so we know. Because many of the
no.
condo owners
Call it
trying to
other
understand
because
what
the
their bills
way
are.
our, the ground rent and the pilot are really sort of make up, from a bond perspective, our pledged revenues. And so we always keep CFM separated from that, because that is not part of what would go to pay back bondholders.
What do the civic facilities fees pay for?
They go into they go into our general bucket of revenues, and so we don't break out, they're pretty fungible, so we don't break them out. I think when they were originally instituted, it was thought that they would be sufficient enough to pay for the for all of the services related to landscaping and upkeep and parks. But that it doesn't come close to the cost of the amount we spend from a budget perspective. And so we don't necessarily break it out for that purpose because we view the dollars as fungible. If CFM was sized as it was originally intended, they would be significantly higher. But what we've, I think even before I came, the decision was made to try to smooth the change in the CFM, not to have it keep pace with how it was intended originally to be spent. Do you want me to go back to that other page too?
Well, that's okay. You basically, with this right here, that shows it, but your other thing showed it as well. So that was fine. I have one more question and you may not have an answer for it, which is fine, but it goes to Brookfield and the deal that you made with Brookfield for the ground rent. As I read it, and I'm not going to say that I'm an expert on how I read it, but I did try. It seems as if the deal was made for Brookfield to have a base ground rent of $5 per square foot until I believe it's 2069. And then, of course, there's going to be revenues and other stuff that comes into it, but they will never pay less than $5 per square foot. And they could possibly pay just $5 per square foot, depending on how they're doing with revenues and how the market goes with their rentals and blah, blah, blah in Brookfield
I
Place.
can't speak to the $5 per square foot. I could certainly follow up with you because it wasn't negotiated in that way. We did set
That's fine.
establish a minimum.
That was what the minimum was.
A minimum base rent for them. And one of the things that I do, and you can keep referring to being conservative, is a lot of leases are just based on earnings generated by a building. We wanted to have a floor, and that floor at a minimum, but it actually is higher, at a minimum would cover a cost. And so, while I can't speak to the $5 per square foot, that's probably more of a Terrence question from a CFO perspective. I have a floor that I'm assured that my bond projections that rely on the rent, the commercial rent, that my bonds are going to be covered.
That
And
makes
so-
sense. That makes sense. And I guess, so my question about it is that how does that, because I'm confident it's $5 per square foot. There's other factors, but that's your floor. That part of it, I'm not shy. It says it clearly in the bond, and it says it clearly in the contract that's on the website. But the Battery Park City Authority has also made it very clear, certainly to the condos, and I don't want to speak for the rental buildings or the commercial buildings, but certainly for the 18 condos, that each of those buildings has to get to $10 per square foot ground rent by 2040, 2042, according to the contracts, they exist. I just want to understand how it is that it's okay for $5 per square foot to be the base for a commercial building that is owned by Brookfield Place and that company, while condo owners that are made up of many individual human beings and people that don't nearly have the resources of Brookfield Place are being held to a doubled price. And you don't have to answer me, Pam. I know I'm kind of a gotcha question, but that is my question.
No, the only thing that I would say is that the rent, that's a floor. And so, the actual rent will be paid based on the building's performance. And we share significantly more in that the building's performance than that minimum. And then the other thing I think that is important is that while both parties had goals in entering into the amendment. One of our goals was to increase the rent over the course of the existing lease through 69, because that rent was substantially below market. And so it was important for us to get closer to market during the early period, and then we're even higher post 69, because the rent that Brookfield was paying, and I remember one of my early sessions of coming with you guys, it was like, why do they pay such a lower percentage than we do? It's because you guys will remember Olympia and York and that bankruptcy, and then 9/11, those contracts were being negotiated kind of in a very distressed period, which resulted in significantly lower rents than it otherwise would have. And they were, because when you're in a stressed decision, you do the best you can. So I can't speak to what they negotiated then. I could only say now it was generating much less revenue than it really should have in today's market. And so our goal was to get this building closer to market. And, I guess economic performance based on that, how the building generates earnings will be remain to be seen. But, we could always show you the actual rent paid versus what that minimum is. And I can include that, as we go forward.
It would be lovely, Pam. Thank you so much. Nice to see you, even a long
Yeah.
distance away.
Yeah.
Tammy, I see you have your hand up.
Hi, Pam. Thanks so much for coming. Really appreciate the dialogue and the conversation. In terms of a long-term future, one of the conversations when it came to resiliency was everything was being built 2050 and 2100. And the conversation was in 25 years, this potentially could be a moot project because everything would need to be redone. So instead of, trying to understand what kind of financial preparation is being done, not only for repair and maintenance of the properties in terms of the resiliency infrastructure that's going in, and the new responsibilities that the Parks Department of the Battery Park City Authority will have with managing the resiliency work that's being done all through not only the battery itself, but Battery Park City, and up north onto Northmore and around in the estuary. So trying to understand that is a new add to the budget lines and how that's going to be represented in any of this, and where we should look to understand, is that broken out? Is it that just lump summed into that? And what are you looking to forecast and how to plan for the next resiliency evaluation when from here? Thanks.
Okay, and I think that's a good and fair question, and it's something that we are always looking at, because when we issue bonds, they're generally 30 years in duration. And so we're thinking about, what do our numbers look like over a fairly long period of time? And as you noted, one additional operating responsibility we will have is the ongoing maintenance, testing, and upkeep of all of the resiliency infrastructure. And so our parks team, parks and operations team is working to prepare the budgets and the estimated cost of what they think it will take. I think one thing we would also be looking at is that's just the ongoing operations, and that would be out of those operating numbers.
Do you have a requirement to separate out the parts that are within the land lease spot of Battery Park City and those that are not?
I'm sorry, can you say that again? Thanks.
Sure.
So there is a percentage of operations and maintenance that will be outside of the land hold that is established for the Battery Park City Authority. Right? We have a land the founding documents talk about where we do and where we don't. So some of it, for example, was done as a contract. So we do the medians on 9A from Battery Park City Authority, but that's done by a contract and agreement. So Pier A was also a contract and a separate agreement. So the question I'm asking is, where will the work be accounted for that is outside the Battery Park City allotted landlines for the battery and for the areas north in the Hudson River Park Trust and around Vornado Realty?
Okay, so I'm gonna try to answer that, and we probably have to do some, other layers of it, but I think it's important to note that whenever we leave the site, the project site that forms the 92 acres of Battery Park City, whenever we're doing that, we're doing that in support of ensuring the success of the project. So when we look at where we go, and I think it's Southview Street, but for the South project, as we leave the site, the Battery Park City site, and then to the north, as we cross over to Northmore, both the goals of that was to ensure the success of those resiliency projects. So such that in both instances, we're going to the high point. So we're not going into those neighborhoods for, just because we could, it's because we needed to. And
I
in
understand
order
that, but
make the
the
project
question
work,
is
so
long-term. The question becomes about long-term maintenance and operation of that.
So just as we need it now, we will need it long-term, and we would want to ensure that those pieces of the project continue to work. So the same maintenance we would do for the project-specific infrastructure, all of that would need to continue. And so that would still continue to form part of our operating cost. And our operations team will provide us budgets of what it would take to maintain those. That will be part of our operating budget. We do not go into HRPT. So I wasn't sure about that reference because they have their own project. We did have to get some easements, and I don't know the technical term, on the platform just in front of Stuyvesant, because we wanted to extend that platform. That's the only portion of HRPT that there's some overlap, and we had to get from them the right to go into their piece of property. We did it for specific design reasons. And so we will maintain the portions that we construct, but we're not maintaining anything that's reaching into HRPT. Same on, at least to date, same on the historic Battery Park, the park portion. We will only be maintaining those portions related to the project that we build. Now, if there's some ongoing maintenance outside, that has to be agreed, that has to be documented, that has to be, discussed about what the cost sharing may or may not be. But that's not a current discussion. It's certainly not one that I'm budgeting for because it's not a legal framework. But as to the portions of the South, which each will describe where we go beyond the site, but as to any of that, if it's a pump station, if it's a tide gate, all of that would be, if it's associated with our project, would be maintained on an ongoing basis by Battery Park City Authority. And it would fall two places. One, it would fall if it's ongoing, like nuts and bolts each year. That sort of maintenance will go into our operating budget. So post-construction, you may see some, we may have a line item. I'm not sure how it will be captured. I don't know if it'll be a separate department. I'd have to tell you that at a later time, but if they're to maintain once we complete the South, that's handed back, the authority has responsibility for the maintenance, and there would be maintenance costs associated with that. I don't have a budget item for that per se, yet. I've projected in, a couple million, for ongoing, maintenance just in general, just so that I have something, targeted. I'm told Gwen, if she was here, she was the original person who provided me a budget, on that, but, it's being housed in our operations, and so once they give us a new number, we'll do annual budgets on that as well. So that's just the normal maintenance portion, but if it's, a repair item, it's probably gonna be a more of a capital item that would fall into our capital numbers. But again, I
Thanks.
think it's important to note it's only as it relates to what's necessary for the success, the ongoing success of our resiliency projects.
I think, yeah, we'd want to see what is resiliency, what is not, and probably a little bit more detail from the operations team to have a deeper dive of understanding. And then I had a
Okay.
question and if you want more detail, I'm happy to discuss that offline. I have no troubles with that.
No,
Um,
I'm
and then
happy to get that because I'll need it anyway, so.
Great. And so you'll get back to us with the planning for the future based on what Battery Park City has already said is a 25-year renew, which was based on, by the time the bonds and everything are done in 2031, will only be 19 years off of needing a new review, and how the authority is budgeting and planning towards those years, because they said that what was done now is a 25-year refresh.
I'm gonna take that back, but I'm gonna leave
Okay.
that for probably, our head of design and construction, Heather. She could probably share a bit more about how the project will progress over time.
We have
Maybe
that, so that's why I'm actually asking you for a financial plan to
Oh, okay.
look ahead versus what, we've heard from Heather. They've done some really incredible deep dives on the information they've given us. So the one thing we're looking at is trying to understand how, looking ahead to the future, Battery Park City Authority is planning for it. Or would we, for example, expect that bonding would be done again at that point? And that's a question that always says, well,
Yeah.
we'd have to talk to the CFO about that. So here we are for you.
Oh, okay, well, look, if there are, capital needs and capital requirements and they're deemed, necessary, both by the authority as well as the city, who also has oversight of our capital plans, then, they will need to be funded, and then I would need to address what that funding, what the level of funding is needed, and how we would structure, to accomplish it. Again, I sort of go back to my goal is always to remain, AAA, so I don't want an, overly burdensome capital requirements, but what I do want is a project that remains successful and achieves the original objective.
Understood.
And,
Can you go to your
I'm
last
happy to
slide?
do that, Tammy.
That would be great. I appreciate it. On the last slide that you had before the thank you, I had a question, because it goes to the difference of, there we go. So, Battery Park City and its founding and its planning purposes was to create a district in Lower Manhattan, which would serve as a model front for other waterfront communities, but it was based on a 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 basis. So the location and the founding properties that created the Battery Park City Authority and the planning of the community were based on 30% that were at luxury, 30% that were middle income, and 30% that were lower income. Can you speak to, now that we are a fully developed marquee neighborhood, how you think that we actually have fulfilled the original doctrination and the models, and how we can look ahead to ensure that actually it is affordable and just does not become a location that is designed only for the marquee.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave that for Raju, but we'll take it back to him. If I were CEO, maybe I would be able to respond to that, but I am not. Once he sets his objectives, mine is to appropriately fund it. But we will take that back. And I'm gonna recap the question, and that is, you're questioning the original thesis behind formation of Battery Park City and the goal of achieving a diverse, economically diverse community.
Correct.
And what it has, and the evolution where it is shifted more, if I'm paraphrasing correctly, towards a luxury community. And just a question of, do we see getting back to that, or what are the current goals? Is that the question?
You're close. Yeah, that works enough for me. But yeah, it's and if we are a model for a waterfront community, which I believe that Battery Park City is one of the best places to live in all of New York, and let's just put that, that's why we're here, is to how to retain that it is accessible and that it is as designed initially, which was supposed to be a model that everyone could, with socioeconomic diversity. And then I challenge for the last comment, as a waterfront community, I would love to see community waterfront access as a forethought, as part of what is a model for a waterfront community, not just ferries and commercial activity. So that's my
Can I
ask.
ask you a question though, when you say
Sure.
waterfront access?
Mhm.
I mean, I know that part of the design, for instance, of the Northwest was to ensure there were, that the Esplanade remains, as lovely as it is, but also to create, more sort of community places of rest and, enjoyment. So I know that that was embedded. Are you talking about something different than that? When you say access,
Yes,
want to
different.
better understand what you mean by access.
So when we get back to the North Cove Marina at some point when it gets reopened, right? We're looking forward to having a community sailing programs, a sailing school, sailing camps, all the things that served a more economically diverse. We're looking to ensure that there is some kind of community programming that's done by the marina operators, and that the moorings, which are so integral to the public access to the water, meaning access to the water for a waterfront community that is north of Stuyvesant, is able to be rebuilt and restored to 100% availability, which is still not necessarily what we understand from the resiliency project. It is critical that we have connection to the water in as many ways as possible, and that no project puts us in a bathtub that we can peer over the wall as we do in other places, but you can't actually see it. I mean, it's placemaking, it's wayfinding. We live on an island, and we'd like to be able to make sure that the water, and especially the Hudson, which is now deemed swimmable, as waterfront. Whether you believe it or love it, I don't anticipate seeing many of us swimming necessarily, but we do want to make sure that all the public accessibility that we have north of Stuyvesant is returned and renewed and put whole 100%, and that everything at North Cove Marina comes back and is not privatized to its 100%, because there are no other areas in Battery Park City necessarily that you can actually get down to the water.
So yeah, North Cove, I'm familiar. I don't think there's any specific plans on what that will look like afterwards. Our intention is to bring it back to what it was, where there is accessibility. But I'm sure there'll be lots of public meetings about, what the objectives are, what some of the design intentions are and things like that. So North Cove, I think for sure. The thing that I'm not certain of is when you mentioned, Stuyvesant, the authority didn't really have water access there unless I'm missing something.
You
there-
are, you are missing a
you
little bit,
talking
but that's
about-
okay. I mean, I don't expect you to be as well versed.
Battery Park City. It's two different things.
I'm talking Battery Park City is
Okay.
building out over in the water, which will impact the mooring field, which is just north of Stuyvesant. And again, you know, I recognize that you have not sat in the hundreds of resiliency meetings that we all have and heard all the presentations. I get that. I don't, you know, it is part to me when we see a slide like this, that when we're talking about a model for a waterfront community, that the public is actually considered about public access and public waterfront uses. And so that's
Okay.
why, yeah. And there has been no confirmation on the north side from the resiliency project. So,
Okay, I have
apo-
one, is that it, Tammy? Thanks.
And Jeff, don't, when
Uh,
you're finished, there is someone from on the attendee list too, with the hand raised.
Okay,
Thank
yeah,
you.
I'll make sure that I check all the raised hands. On the special purpose fund and the money that goes to HPD, it's around $50 million a
Call
year,
it, yeah.
roughly.
It's not a fixed amount, it
Yeah.
depends on excess revenue, and then we split between
Right.
general. But it should fall in the 50 million
Okay.
range.
I have two questions about that. One is there any specificity on how HPD is supposed to be spending that money? Or is it just going into the funds that they have available to do whatever it is that they do?
I think, other than the fact that it should be for affordable housing purposes, I don't think we go into the level of detail because then we would be, more policy making for them. But I think we try to give a general framework to ensure that because of the concern that originally, the thought was that money was gonna go to affordable housing, and then when there was, disruption in the finances in the city, it started going elsewhere. And so we tried to get it more framed to ensure that it was solely targeted to affordability.
Okay, so that it has to go to, it doesn't just go into the city's general fund, it
No.
goes specifically to HPD, okay?
Specifically,
And
and they have to put it in affordable.
Can I,
projects.
that was gonna be, I just wanted
Yeah,
to follow up to
yeah.
that. They have to, is there a
They have to.
contract or some
Is it
public
writing?
document? Yeah, I would love to see.
Yeah, I'll have to check with legal to see what form they have and if it's, available.
Well, it should be public.
And then on the settlement agreement for the $500 million, what happens when that 500 million is dispersed?
And the
Do you need
same,
another settlement agreement
That's
again? Is that
exactly
basically
right.
what it works?
that's
Okay.
exactly right.
Never stops.
Yeah, it will then, I think it's best to negotiate the next agreement in advance.
Mhm.
And I think even in this one, the 24, the discussion started, but it just didn't move fast enough.
Yeah.
And so that meant that for a few years, it continued, it did accumulate, but it will continue to accumulate and then fund whatever if it's a year or 2 years, it'll fund whatever's agreed.
Yeah.
Those settlement agreements, as it relates to joint purpose, could change as the nature of what's needed in the city or the state
Right.
changes. So
Okay.
there's no guarantee to what the next one is.
Well, at the rate you're having the excess funds, you may need to start negotiating the new settlement agreement pretty soon. That's true. So we have questions. Somebody online with a hand up?
Mark.
Mark Liebman. Mark, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Hi, good evening. Jeff covered one of my questions. I had a second question regarding World Trade Center 5. And there's been some discussion in the local media that the affordability status at World Trade Center 5 may be in question now. And I was just wondering the $5 million that was allocated to that project, if that was allocated and paid, or if that's allocated pending them actually developing the affordable housing program there.
That is a question I can specifically answer, which is we still hold that 5 million. It's in separate funds, pending, the request from the state. What I can't say is, what I can say is that that was originally intended to support affordable housing in that building. It didn't take the form of, some very specific agreement. It was just a state guidance. But before we would release the funds, we'd have to have it requested by the state. I am not involved in World Trade Center 5 negotiations, so I don't know where they are. I haven't gotten word that that is the case, that they would be reducing or eliminating affordable housing. I thought it was a pretty core principle when it was originally being developed. But I also know, or recall that when it was being developed, there was some concern about the level of affordability and whether the building could sustain that amount of affordability and still be operating in a viable way. So I would only guess that maybe they've reduced it as opposed to eliminated, but I'm not involved in it. But I can tell you that we do still have the 5 million set aside for that purpose.
Great, thank
I
you.
should mention that a representative of the Port Authority subsequent to those articles appeared at one committee meeting, I think maybe the executive committee.
Yep.
And basically said that,
Actually, it was
the
quality of
commitment-
life last month, but they will be coming back, hopefully.
and that the commitment remains, and that she characterized the comments at the previous quality of life meeting as basically being misunderstood. We'll see. They're coming back to quality of life, and I guess we'll hear it definitively. So, go ahead, Mark, was that your question? Oh, it's Matt now? Oh, okay. Matt, go ahead.
Hi, thanks. I'd like to follow up on Jeff's question. You said that there's some kind of binding agreement that the money you hand over to HPD, I think, will be used for affordable housing. Does that binding agreement include any enforceable provision that says the money you give them is in addition to, rather than instead of, what they otherwise would have spent? Because if there's not, insofar as dollars are fungible, and you push 50 million in the front door, but 50 goes out the back door, your money is effectively repaving streets in the Bronx and buying new buses in Staten Island.
I do not, I can confirm that, whether or not that is in there. I don't recall that being incremental, as opposed to the result of fungibility, but having done allocations for a municipality, I understand the concept of fungibility, so. We can circle back to you, Matt, just to confirm, but I don't recall that being in that, in the
Okay.
discussion.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Matt. Good question. Any other questions in the room? Okay, Pam, thank you very much. It's always very informative. I'm glad you take the time to go through this financial report every year. It's a very important issue.
Well, I think the community is lucky to have you guys. Really great questions. We'll get back to you with the ones, probably.
Thank you, Pam.
Thank you so much, Pam. Really appreciate you. Bye.
And then
Thank you.
if we miss one of your questions, please, or we don't cast it in the way that you intended, because Tammy, yours was multi-layered, so I'm gonna try to capture as much as possible, but we're happy to go those other layers as well if we miss them.
I truly appreciate it. I don't expect you to know every detail of everything. It's, being here and being accessible and answering questions is half the conversation. So thank you very, very much.
Absolutely. Great to see you as well.
Thank you.
I'm sure who's next.
I think it may be Dan. Dan, are you doing the presentation on Albany Street and Rector?
Yes, that's right. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, you can.
Okay, fantastic. Do you have the slides or do you want me to pull them up?
I do. I can share them if you want.
Okay, great. Yeah, we just have a condensed version of what we showed about a week and a half ago at 200 Rector, which was the second of 3 feedback sessions focused on the street end design at Albany Street and Rector Place. So to set the table a little bit, I know that we had a request from CB1 specifically, and it's something that we talked about internally as well. We weren't satisfied with the design of the dry side, what we call the dry side of the wall at both these street ends, Albany Street and Rector Place. And due to the tide gate construction, that created a little bit more constraint with regard to how DEP needs to access these street ends. And so, wherever there's more constraints, there's an opportunity for design. So we took that opportunity to have these 3 feedback sessions. The first was in February, I think it was February 11th. The second was last month, March 25th, I believe. And the third is in May 20th. So we encourage anyone who's interested in this to stop by 200 Rector on May 20th for the third session. But to set the table a little bit, the first session in February was really intended to gather ideas and hear feedback about what people wanted to see. It was very open-ended. We received a lot of good feedback, and based on that feedback, we then sent out a survey. And we were happy to get over 80 responses, both in person and through the online survey, of what people wanted to see over 4 main categories. The first you see on the slide here, this is activities and amenities. So we asked, what do people want to see at the street ends? Do they want pedestrian access? Do they want quiet spaces? Do they want gathering spaces? It turns out, as you can see here, that pedestrian access and quiet spaces were the most favorite items there. Gathering spaces, not so much. Landscaping was one of the preferred amenities, as was seating and shading, slightly lower at 57 and 50% respectively. Art only came in at 24%. So, clearly we're stewards of art throughout the neighborhood, and we wouldn't rule that out in the future. But as far as this exercise goes, that was not quite as popular as an amenity as landscaping, seating, and shading. So then, based on these inputs, we thought about what impact it had to the street end design. So based on these inputs, we wanted to have as few obstacles and as few obstacles in the line of sight to go out to the Esplanade. Next slide.
Dan, can I ask just a quick question before you keep going?
Tammy, go ahead.
Can you, do you have numbers of how many people filled in? Like, it wasn't something that, was required in every residential building. There are 76,000 people in Lower Manhattan. How many people filled out the survey? And how many people actually uniquely attended?
We had 42 respondents to the online survey. And in person on the first meeting, I think we had something north of 40. Becky, do you know the exact number?
Yeah, I don't have the exact number off the top of my head. I can get back to you with that question, but we do have those numbers.
Yeah, so
I think that's
we were happy to get at least 80 people to respond. Yeah.
Do you know if the 40 people in the room were distinct from the people who filled in the online? And they're not double dipped?
We do have names on the answers, so we can't trace it back, but we want to give people anonymity and privacy on what they submitted to us. We won't be releasing exact names, but we do know who filled it out.
So as they didn't do it twice.
No one did it twice, and we can see it.
Yeah. So
but I think Tammy
about
was also
80.
asking the question of to what extent were the survey respondents overlapping with people who attended?
Understood. I didn't compare those two. I know that we did have people who did fill out the survey that were unable to attend the in-person session. And we did also, within this feedback here, we did take the table exercises and also factor that into our decision-making here as well. And it all pretty much correlated with the same results as what we got in the survey as well. So no major, outliers as far as anything when coming those data points.
Becky, can you follow up with how many comparatively that went out and people who gave earlier feedback during the FEIS, because I find 80 people a very, very small number based on the number of people who live in Battery Park City, not even counting the people who work here. So,
No, I don't disagree.
and
It's
I
not a
understand
huge
it's
number.
hard.
It's also
But-
just like a nature area. I think if it was a more widespread survey other than just Albany Rector, I think we would have done this more. It was
Yeah.
just for these street ends. So it's a little bit more tighter, and I think it was mostly residents who responded to that, because frankly, I think the residents spend more time in those areas than people who work in the neighborhood. You know, I could say for myself as someone, you know, I don't spend a ton of time on each street unless I'm just crossing through. So, you know, I would say, you know, I'll go back and look at some of that information, other things that I have, but I would say for the most part, you know, and the people who've attended in person have been roughly people who live in buildings that are in the area.
Send people.
I think that that's an even greater concern for me then. And I say that only because Jeff can give you an exact count of number of people who live at Gateway, but having been, you know, on the leading the tenants association before and working with the buildings that are over on Albany, there are thousands of people. So if we're basing everything off of 80, I find the number, and we're not including anything that came from the FEIS for the feedback from there, I am concerned about the survey. And I know it was done in a small quality period of time and other things like that. I just am concerned that 80 is a very unique number. And I wanted to get that out there before we continued on.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Can I
fair.
add
Thank you, Tammy. Yeah. Mhm.
Let Dan finish and then we'll have questions. at the
Sounds
end.
good.
Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, I only have a few slides. So this slide represents the second main bucket of feedback we were after, which was, you know, what type of layout are people interested in? Do you want something orthogonal? Do you want something asymmetrical? How far from the residential facades would you prefer to see seating? That kind of thing. We did get more than 50% of the respondents asking for seating to be set back at least 20 feet from residential facades. Some people liked a straight layout. Some people liked an asymmetrical layout. We have examples from both within the neighborhood. You know, you could look at Teardrop Park, which is largely asymmetrical. And then you could look at something like Rector Place and Rector Park, which is very orthogonally laid out. So there were strong arguments for both sides. Neither was very prominent there. So the impact of the street design here really mostly was offsetting the seating from the buildings and retaining that openness in the center, based on the aperture of the flood barrier system. Next slide. So the next was seating. You know, we were hoping to get a lot of feedback on seating, and we did. Very clearly, throughout the neighborhood, the World's Fair benches is the most popular seating option. You know, we showed examples of seating with tables, linear seating, single chairs like you might see in Bryant Park, or modular seating, which was actually my personal favorite. But those were less popular than World's Fair benches, which is, you know, it's one of the preeminent design features of Battery Park City. And it's no wonder that people prefer them. You can see here in this picture, the lower esplanade, the famous World's Fair benches. So that resoundingly is the preference for seating. Next slide. And the last was what types of landscaping and what types of shading are people interested in? So what types of landscaping, you know, we're a district of parks, and we enjoy many different types of landscaping, and that came through with the survey. Flowers and trees were most popular, followed by bushes and lower plantings. Planters were not as popular, which was surprising to me. I think that given the constraints, the opportunity for planting is really narrowed if we don't use planters that can be moved for DEP access. So in the next feedback session, I'd like to show a few examples of planters to try to convince some people that might be a good way to go. Otherwise, we're looking at a lot of hardscaping, in my opinion, given the constraints that we have to provide access to DEP. So that's one thing that I'd like to see a little bit more feedback from. One quote that someone said is, we would like to see as much natural shade from trees as possible, and things like umbrellas and artificial shade was not as popular. So what impact to the street end design? We're looking at more landscape areas as much as possible, flowers, bushes, trees, that kind of thing. Next. And so, this is a very high level diagram, but it's basically an attempt to look at all the different layers of feedback that we received and what impact that has on the design. So you can see Albany Street on the left here, Rector Place on the right. Rector Place is significantly wider, it should be noted. It's about 140 feet from facade to facade. Albany Street is only about 100 feet, so you have a little bit less room for planting. But you can see here, if we take the assumption that people want clear access to the esplanade, that's that blue arrow in the middle. And then if we want seating at least 20 feet from the facades, you can see that in that purple color, what opportunities there are for seating. And then if we take the rest of the area for landscaping, trees where we can plant them at least 15 feet away from the flood barrier system, and low plantings closer to the flood barrier system, you're left with this diagram, which is getting a little bit closer to a Partee diagram or a design for these street ends. And so based on this feedback, we're gonna throw a couple potential designs up and see what feedback we get further in the third feedback session. And that was the exercise for the first two sessions. So happy to answer any questions with regard to these.
Tammy, go ahead.
Okay, so I'd like to make some engagement suggestions, simply because I am concerned that 80 people representing Gateway is over 1,700 units, over 3,000 people, not including any of the buildings on Albany Street, which are highly affected. So agreed, some people might not care, but I do think that we need to figure out a better engagement session. I would say that when you're talking at less than even 2% of the people who live on that block, that's a problem. We know that you move the security fence to prevent the access based on somebody's apartment who was uncomfortable, understood that they didn't want somebody walking within 20 feet of their building line. Okay, that is understood, and I appreciate their concerns for security with their balconies, with everything else that they have going on. I will say in other parts of the neighborhood, people are walking right underneath your windows. And we did not move anything to accommodate other people. Was it because one was a condo and one was a rent stabilized building? I don't think so. I would never imagine that it would be that. But I do think that we need to figure out, and this goes back to Becky and the team, a better way to engage, whether it's engaging within the complexes themselves, hosting the meeting on site, or being in the lobby to gather feedback. I'm a little concerned about where we're going as a public benefit and the engagement conversations. So that's why I asked if maybe this was based off of including some from when the EIS went out and things like that. So I just concerned. I don't want to make any commentary necessarily on plantings and trees. We have an incredible team that does things like that. But one of the, I'm going to leave that as it is. Engagement is my biggest concern, is that we're making decisions based on, a couple dozen people who may have showed up and filled out the thing twice. And then
Tammy, I think you hit
Mhm.
it right on the head in terms of how to get the engagement, is actually setting up in the lobbies of these buildings that are right here. Getting people as they're coming in and out, probably coming in at the end of the day or on a weekend or an evening, because not your fault, guys. You have advertised this. I'm not going to tell you that you aren't telling people about it, because you are. People aren't paying attention, but they need to. This is really impacting people, and
I think it's
I
a
think it
different
needs to
type
be
of
more
engagement.
directed.
Yes.
Yeah, and to your point, both Tammy and Justine, I hear both of you and I don't disagree. Just the reality is we don't have that many people. But one thing that we have been doing lately, especially in the South End, because we are getting ready to do work out there, we've had our team out there handing out leaflets over the past few days we've been doing resiliency drop-ins and we've increased resiliency drop-ins, which we're gonna bring up at the end of the slide. You know, we're also getting ready to bring the project bike back out. We're logging hours. You can see all those on the BPC resiliency website. So we are out there doing what we can. You know, I'm happy to have some time to sit across. If you have some contacts, especially in Gateway, if you want to get Michael and some of our crew out there, I'm happy to come. So,
Yeah.
So,
I want
Becky-
to address this,
Hold on.
because what's just been said.
Let's do Q&A before. So
So
Tammy.
that is part of my
before-
Q&A. My Q&A would be to insist that the engagement is done differently. And we are happy as we've had conversations to do this. We've seen some of the limited, it's not about handing out, it's about getting input and about trying to work with you as you need to get into buildings, if that's something for some reason. I know Nick has contacts with every management company and every condo board. So this should not be a difficult thing to have someone sit in the building with the survey and showing pictures, to have people give you feedback distinct and unique, and getting several hundreds versus not even 2% of the community. That's even on the two blocks, or the one block that I mentioned. Lastly,
right.
the
Yeah, go ahead.
the difference in the two clear access, Albany Street, are you talking on this, Dan, that it's clear access view corridor from the street to the water? Will you see the water from any point here? And the same thing at Rector. Rector has the Rector gate that you used to be able to see straight forward. Albany had the obstruction with the upper room that was community seating. That was not underneath anybody's windows. That was not at all, an issue. So I think people will need to understand when you're talking, and I don't even understand from where you're showing what that's going to look like, right?
Yeah,
Are
that's
you
fair
sitting
enough.
at a table? Are you sitting at a table and you have a view of the water? Or am I sitting
Yeah.
at a table with a view of the street behind me and that's all I see? And that's
Yeah, fair.
part
Yeah.
of the engagement that I think people need to see as well.
There's actually a slide earlier here that shows a rendering of what you'd see looking down Albany Street. If we want to go down a few slides,
Mm-hmm.
keep going back. This one. So this is a rendering looking down Albany Street. As you can see, it's fairly clear. At the end of Rector Place, we have a few more trees that provide shade within what we're calling the conversation room at the Rector Street end. So while you will still be able to see the river, I imagine it won't be quite as clear as this Albany Street view.
So what you can't tell from this Albany Street view, as you've seen it, it looks to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but all the seating is on the street side. There's no gathered seating on the water side. At the water side.
No, so yeah, you can't really see it from this rendering, but this at the end of Albany Street is what we call the outlook, which are two interlocking areas that are both areas for you to look out onto the river, as well as provide seating underneath some shading.
I'm
So I
talking
can
about
provide that
community
plan.
seating, not just bench seating. I'm trying to understand
That's-
when you're talking seating to have a more definitive understanding. Like where I see here, I can't imagine anybody wanting to sit on a street bed at picnic tables necessarily. The reason that the seating was so valued in these areas were because of the views of the water. So my question is, when
Is
you're
it-
looking at the seating places that you show here, they're on the cul-de-sac side of the wall. They're not. And are those permanent or are those portable?
So those picnic tables represent a design that was made before we had this feedback session. So we're hearing that the picnic tables are not quite as popular, so ignore those in this rendering. The idea was just to show you approximately what the view would look like to the Hudson River. But to answer your question a little further, the seating that's within what we call the outlook is precast concrete with wooden slats on top. Not the World's Fair within that. And then on the lower esplanade would be that regular cadence of World's Fair benches that everyone's familiar with.
So the question was, the answer is there is no community gathering seating on the water side of the wall any longer. Because
I would
that's
actually
what,
I would call both nodes of the, can I show my screen actually? I have a rendering of,
Dan, I mean, the question,
is that
Dan, is can I
possible?
sit down and eat a meal at the tables as you're describing? I mean, I've seen molded concrete with wood slats in Disney, and that's not something that you sit at. It's around planters that they have in Disney, or that you can see around the Travelers Building. It's not.
We're definitely open to ideas like that. So far in both feedback sessions and through the survey, we haven't received the idea that that's a popular thing. I know that you've brought that up previously, which is why we're having this.
I
But that's
don't think
frankly just
people
not what we're
understand that
hearing.
I don't think that people understand that it's gone either, and that none of it's coming back. That seems to be the conversation that comes to me by text and call and email. Hey, what happened to this? Hey, what happened to that? So,
What,
I mean, people don't recognize until the bulldozers come down. So this is why I'm
Mm.
talking about engagement, to understand this is what it was, this is where it is, here's the use you had, here's the use you will have, and where it will be is something that I don't think the community necessarily understands. Because when I look at that seating area, that's not a place that I'm going to sit and eat my lunch at a table, right? The tables and chairs you're putting on the street side, and that's very, very different. There used to be World's Fair benches, I believe, on the dry, what you're now calling the dry side, but the communal seating was on the other. And so that's my question becomes is when you do engagement, it's not only about the look, it's about for people to actually understand here's what it was, here's what it will be.
Mhm.
And here are the uses from point A to point B.
Yeah, that's fair. And that was communicated in both feedback sessions, as well as, we've gone to each building several times, as well as having, larger public meetings, as you're aware, to communicate what's currently there and what's proposed. So I don't think it's totally fair to say that these people, if they've been paying attention, don't understand,
Most don't pay
wh-
attention, Dan. They go to work, they come home, they don't understand.
yeah. Well,
I
to your
don't
point,
see.
we're open to, we're
Yeah.
open to different ways to engage, but to date, that's been communicated, I think.
And if I
Um,
could just
oh,
comment.
look, Jill has been trying to
Okay,
speak
good.
for a while.
All right, I have to be really firm here. And I kind of, Dan, that actually, I think was an off-base comment. Because participating in a Zoom call takes a lot of different energy, being aware. It's not fair to say, and then to base these on a very small survey, and then to say our $900 million funded project doesn't have enough people to come to an apartment building or a condo building.
Don't, Joe. I wish I did.
Well, we gotta
Okay,
go higher
all right.
up then. That's-
Then,
yeah.
then, let me, yeah.
I'm
yeah,
not the senior person on this team.
And you know what? This is not personal to you because you don't create
I'm
the
correct.
team. So please, please know that. I have great respect for you and appreciate you being here very, very much. For the oversight, the people who determine this, you don't have an almost $1 billion project and then tell the community, we can't actually inform you properly. With decent drawings that people can look at, to meet them where they live, by sending out an announcement for a tenants association that only a small percentage of people even belong to, that they have to sit through a Zoom, is not notifying the people. I think you've got tons of people that can be trained. I think putting out the nice guy with the little bicycle setup is not this. You cannot base your decisions on this teeny group of people who have a very vested interest in not wanting people sitting in front of their
Jill,
windows.
what would you like to see? at
I
the end
would
of all
like
this?
to see
No.
people draw from other departments to come out now to create drawings that are better than these weird three-dimensional things that nobody can decipher. Basically, normal, average, non-architectural people can decipher. This is not, and I have been through this so many times, you are not informing the community properly. You're not presenting this to the community in a way they can understand. You are not meeting the community where they live. Having a little bicycle stand outside during business hours when everyone's at work is not notification. If your team, which I greatly respect, does not have enough staff, then whoever's in charge of this project, Dan, needs to reach out and pull in people from your team and from other teams. And for goodness sakes, reach out, do a real survey, meet the people where they live, and do not base this on this small group. I'm just speechless.
Did you fill out the survey?
I didn't even see the survey.
It was sent out multiple times.
Okay, how many people are even signed up to receive
We
it?
had it on the main list and the construction list, so.
Okay.
I was.
And
All right.
we've talked about,
Um,
we've talked about it.
Well, then I filled it out. I'm sure I filled it out.
That you could also use volunteers to hand out the surveys.
Well, we did them digitally. I'm happy to. Again, I'm the most junior person on the team. So I can't make any decisions here. So send your emails to Rami Meadow, you know, and if ideas, I would love to like put some things in that I don't have seniority to make those decisions.
Is Rami on the call?
Well,
Okay.
No, wait a
let- hold on.
Homeowner associations, what are you doing to inform your neighbors you're so worried about? I'm kind of with what I've been hearing back here.
Okay,
A
well,
lot of people don't care that much to get involved because they trust, they like the professionals, what the jobs they've done, and they have a lot of faith, and so they know about these meetings, and they're choosing not to go.
unfair. People are extremely busy. They have, no, it's
Well-
unfair not to meet them where they live. People don't understand. People aren't on the mailing list. People get 20 billion emails.
About it.
You don't really realize it. You have to be
So-
fair.
I think we heard your point.
Okay,
I think we all agree there could be more engagement, but I do think that residents have some degree of personal responsibility to pay attention to what is going on. I know that Tenants Association at Gateway has advertised these sessions. We've put the survey in our newsletters. And I tend to agree with Betty that a lot of people don't specifically care. They want it to be done well, but they look around Battery Park City and they say, well, most things are done well. I'm too busy. I'm not a designer. But I do agree that when we do engage, I think it is helpful to have a before and after. Because when you ask someone in the abstract, do you want a gathering place? Most people will knee-jerk say no. But if you show them the upper room and you say, did you like that? Would you like something similar? Then you'll ferret out the people who actually didn't like the upper room. And who knows, for all I know, a majority didn't, but I tend to think a majority did. And I think you may get better feedback with the before and after slides. Mary Ann, you had some
I was
comments.
gonna bring up the upper room
Yeah.
as something that people were mourning, that it's lost, that it really has to go. Cause it was a work of art, but it was especially a place where where families gathered.
So many birthday parties.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know,
And at least
Something
those
like
of us
that.
who didn't overlook it thought it was great. Now, I know a lot of people from
Right.
350 Albany showed up at some of these meetings that I went to, and maybe they didn't think it was great. I don't know.
it's too close to the windows.
But I do think the before and after is because even something as simple as, do you want seating within 20 feet of the building or not? People may not have an idea of what that really means
Yeah.
unless they see like some diagrams or something like that. So I do think that it is important to engage on this. I think there's only so much you can do to, bring a horse to water, so to speak. But that doesn't mean you don't stop trying to engage. And I think, as we've all acknowledged, the number of responses to the survey were small, way smaller than what you would, I don't think you'd want to make a design decision based solely on what you see in response to a survey. So those are
Thank you.
my
Thank you.
comments.
Yeah. I really
Yeah, go
appreciate
ahead,
that. Can I just speak to some of those? So I understand the frustration on a project this large, feeling like people are not being heard. We're sensitive to that, and we've since 2021, we've been holding public meetings, and we're hoping that we've gotten feedback throughout this entire process. But I understand, there's still frustration, especially based on individual preferences. I think there's multiple ways that you can design this street end for it to be wonderful. If someone is not getting what they want, but someone else is, that's the difficulty in this public engagement process, right? To Jeff's point, the what was there previously versus proposed is a great idea, and we've shown that at both feedback sessions so far. This is just a consolidated slide deck, so we've done the best to try to illustrate what was there previously versus proposed. That's a great idea, and we've tried to incorporate that. And to your last point of, which is fair, 80 people should not dictate the final design. We've just tried to incorporate as much feedback as possible. This design will be a proposed design until closer to the end of construction. And then we're hoping to revisit it because we know that sometimes preferences can shift throughout the neighborhood. So we're looking forward to getting more feedback closer to implementation. This is not the end of the road by any means. And so, yeah, we're doing our best. We understand that fewer people might show up if we're just talking about two individual street ends, which is a very small portion of the scope. So that's one other issue. But points taken, and I appreciate the comments. Thank you.
I see we have someone from the audience, Mark Liebman, again. Mark, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. I did attend both of the design sessions that Dan and his team hosted, and just a little bit of context and feedback, and just to follow on what Dan was saying, the design work they're doing now won't be implemented until perhaps 2030, I think. And so I think it would be helpful to share, at what point does a design have to be finalized? I think there's a lot of opportunity, as you just pointed out, for additional feedback. But at what point do you have to have that design kind of finalized and on the book in order to meet that 2030 deadline?
That's a great question. And, many of you might be aware that the design for the entire project, with a capital D design, has already been bought by the contractor. So these different design feedback sessions that we're doing will be handled in a parallel effort, probably as a capital project, not necessarily under the umbrella of the Northwest project. So it's fairly independent with regard to the current construction. I'm hoping that once construction is nearing completion, that we can revisit this as a capital project, and it'll be on that timeline, Mark. So probably closer to 2030 is to your point.
So we have several years worth of engagement opportunities to continue discussing this. Yeah. And
that's right.
I'm glad to hear about the delay. I think that's very realistic given when it's going to be implemented. Two, I wanted to say, because there's also the issue of whose voice really matters. When you're talking about large numbers, should more weight be given to those who live very close? Because they're going to live with the consequences of it, not just the crowds outside their windows. Do we care only about, say, the south for those particular road ends? Because I keep hearing about Gateway because it's so close. What about everything on the north? They're not even spoken about ever. As if they don't pay anything to these projects and never live in the neighborhood. I have no real problem with some limits being set. I really don't. But I don't think the speakers are addressing that issue. They're talking about my group isn't represented enough, and I wonder how meaningful that really is. What I can say is I did not fill out a survey, nor did I attend one of the sessions. But I was really struck by seeing the results. One, they were very consistent with what I've heard at meetings over and over. Second of all, they're what I would have chosen anyway. And the other thing with surveys and others, surveys tend to limit what you can or can't say. They direct you in different ways. But sometimes I don't have a great design sense or that much that I care about a few things. Sometimes it'd be better to ask, what don't I? So if there's a laundry list, what do I like least? Because there are some things that are real deal breakers, and I think those are probably more important than what I work with. That's my first choice. I really don't like it. Is different.
No, that totally makes sense, because like I'm the same with my neighborhood projects, like I know what I don't want to see, right? I mean, I don't have a strong, yeah, that's a good point.
So otherwise, I think it's moving in the right direction, and I think it's concerned about the number of people, as long as the authority keeps seeking out feedback.
Mhm.
I think the time frame should be kept in mind.
Good point, Betty.
Thanks.
I may
Thank you,
have cut
Betty.
off Mark. I just went down. Okay.
Yeah, I
Okay.
just wanted to
Oh, Mark. Go
just
ahead, Mark.
share just a general comment about the feedback from the 2 design sessions. I think Dan and his team are in a terribly difficult position of trying to please everybody because some of the feedback at the first design session was very, very vocal and very adamant about no seating. That they don't want crowds. I don't want people congregating. They don't want people talking. I think those are probably people from the buildings right along Albany and Rector. But I'm sure there are some people who enjoyed birthday parties and enjoyed sunset dinner, at the upper room, who would be adamant about, no, we really like the seating and we want to be able to sit and enjoy a meal. So I think, the more engagement certainly I think is relevant. I'm just not sure what Dan will do with all that engagement.
Yeah, and that's fair. And combining your comment, Mark, with Betty's, it's clear when we're talking about these specific street ends and the way that the survey was designed that you're going to get certain types of feedback, especially from those close by. And that's illustrated by the survey results saying that we want seating offset from the facades. I really, personally, I don't mind that offset because it gives you more room for landscaping behind it. So there's pros and cons to both. But to your larger point of how you make decisions, is it more from the residences and the tenants close by, or should you take into account the larger public sphere? As BBCA, it's our responsibility to look out for residents, people that are just visiting for the first time, people that happen to come by on weekends. We have to try to design for the whole spectrum of people that would occupy and enjoy this space. So we're keeping that in mind as well.
And maybe this could be an opportunity to engage with a public design contest where you open up to, and I don't know the history of the upper room. I know it was a commissioned art piece. I don't know if it was how it was done, but I know a little bit of the history. But maybe this is an opportunity to go out to the community at large, design architects, and have people submit their idea and have the community cast their votes. I think that worked well for the 9/11, but just an idea.
It's a very interesting idea. Thanks, Mark.
Okay, I think we've beaten these street ends to the ground for the moment. We have lots of time to think about it, but it is very important to get public input before we finalize our design. And I thank you, Dan, for all the efforts you guys have done so far. We just need to keep doing it. So
thanks for the time. Appreciate it.
Thank
You guys,
Dan.
really appreciate you.
Thank you, Dan. And if we can help on CB1 with messaging, with coordinating and connecting for Becky or you or anyone, please let Zach know. I mean, there's lots of us. We're happy to help.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Tammy.
You're welcome.
Yeah. I'm wondering if we should switch 3 and 4 in order. Give Eves a chance to get out of here with the rest of the design people, but also it's really
Jeff, what's
contextually-
3 and what's 4, if I can ask?
Well, 3 is yours, but 4 is the South project update. I'm just thinking since we were talking about project.
I may
or
tell you, if I can interrupt, that I see a lot of people who are the attendees right now who are waiting
We're on to
specifically.
3?
Yeah,
Okay.
so
Okay,
I know
okay.
that they've been here for a long time and it's already been almost 2 hours. So if you don't mind.
Okay, all right, so do you mind? All right, so let's go with the order that we have here. So the next item on the agenda is legislation that is pending in Albany. It has passed the Senate, but it's still in committee in the Assembly. And what it is we probably should have passed out copies of the legislation. but its Senate bill number is 1462, and conceptually, it's very simple. What it does, it's basically a middle class affordability measure applicable to Battery Park City. It has its most direct effect on condo owners, but it also applies to a segment of renters as well. And it applies to people who meet an income test of 150% of AMI or lower. And if you fall into that category, I'll explain it for the condo owner first because it's simpler to explain. If you have 150 AMI, that's area median income, or less, and you have a primary residence in a condo in Battery Park City, what this bill would do would be to freeze your ground rent at the level that you achieve that income qualification. Or in the case of when the legislation first passes, if you already qualify, then your ground rent will be frozen at the previous year's ground rent.
It's for an individual.
For an individual or a household. I believe it's eligible homeowner, means an owner of a residence.
Jeff,
Adjusted
I would
household
assume that
size.
it would be the income of the
It's a
entire
household.
household. So if you have a
Yes.
husband and wife or partners that are working, I'm assuming it's the whole income.
That's right, it says household income. And basically what happens is that the Battery Park City Authority would give a credit to the building on the ground rent equal to the difference of what that would have been. So if it's going up by $10 from one year to the next, people who qualify wouldn't have to pay that extra $10 in ground
Actually,
rent.
no, Jeff. I'm so sorry to interrupt you. It's a rebate to the actual owners that qualify. So if, for fact, Mary Ann Braverman, who lives in a building and is an owner, let's assume she qualifies. Her ground rent today is $4.04 per square foot. This law goes into effect. It's $4.04 per square foot. She qualifies. She does pay the 3% increase. But after she's qualified, the authority at some point in the future will rebate her the difference between the $4 and the $4.50, whatever the heck 3% is. So it's a rebate. So basically, there is no penalty to anybody else in the condo building or the Battery Park City Authority. They're getting paid in the moment. It's just qualified people who get a rebate after the fact, if in fact they are qualified. And it's only 2 years. And they have to reapply. So it is a very much of a means tested thing for both renters and condo owners. And the burden does not fall to anyone else in the building. So for example, if you've got Mary Ann and assume that Betty lived in the same building, Betty would not have to pick up the difference of what Mary Ann was paying, for example, assume it was the same building. That's not the case. There is completely and absolutely no downside to anybody else. It is just helping someone who is unable or struggling to stay in their home, stay in their home. And that's it.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. Yes, it works as a rebate. It also provides or allows for the authority to do it as a kind of an advanced rebate based on previous qualifications. Go ahead, Jim.
So, I strongly support the condo aspect of this, 100%. I think it's really important. I think that the breakdown in terms of the level is right. One issue I have is that I really and truly do not believe that this is anything to do with the renters. Just to be clear, if you are a market rate renter, you would not benefit. If you rent your apartment from a condo owner, you will not benefit. If you live in a 421A, like the Solaire, I do not believe you're going to benefit.
Incorrect, Jill. I'm
So-
going to interrupt you right there. It will,
let me-
no,
let-
no,
let-
no,
let
let me
me finish.
finish
Let
so you
Jill
get it
finish.
accurate
And-
with what you're saying. It
Can I
will
just-
benefit,
I
this
checked
will
this.
benefit any renter who is in a rent stabilized unit, which would be 421A,
No,
421G.
it does not
Yes,
say that.
it
It says
does.
quasi.
Or-
Please, look at the
Let
bill.
me finish. Let me finish.
Hey,
Or
hey,
a
hey,
quasi.
I'm talking.
Jeff,
Hold on,
can you
hold
please?
on. Justine, let Jill finish.
It says, it does not say that. I'm
Yes, it
going to read
does.
it to you. Okay, let's see. Okay,
It says
3A, 2i.
eligible renter shall be the person in a.
Rent stabilized, quasi rent
where do
stabilized,
you see
or
this?
has
Because
an
I saw
annual
it
rent restriction.
designated. Okay,
Yeah.
eligible renter shall mean a person whose primary residence is located in the Battery Park City project area and is designated a quasi-rent stabilized unit or has restrictions on annual and rent increases pursuant to a regulatory agreement, and this is key, between the authority and the landlord. 421A is not between the authority and the landlord, right? It's between the state and the landlord. And I did ask Kavanaugh's office, and you can confirm with them. I also asked them to confirm if a condo owner renting, the condo owner does get
correct.
the difference. The condo owner who rents out their unit to a renter, a lot of investors, a lot of people do that. The condo owner does get that break. However, the renter does not.
No, no, the
No.
Owner has to be living in the unit.
Incorrect, Jill,
Okay,
because
all right. Okay, whatever
If-
the
It,
deal is.
it would not be your primary residence if if Mary Ann owned her
Let me
apartment
just finish,
and rented
please.
it out, she would not qualify because she was not living primarily in that residence, Jill.
I'm just talking about renters right now and why I don't think this really applies to the renters. If you can show me, so as far as I can figure out, this would only apply to the percentage, the qualified percentage of the 340 people who are quasi-rent stabilized at Gateway. And we're not even sure what that amount would be. If it would be $5, $100, I mean, we have no idea. We do know for the condo owners what that would be. We can assume perhaps it's a small amount. If you can tell me who else is a renter is included in this?
Okay, I
besides the
can,
quasi-
if you're finished.
Hold on, Justine. We do have the ability to suggest amendments. If there is something that we think is lacking or shouldn't be, or to the contrary, something in there that shouldn't be in there,
I
we can
think
suggest amendments. And
that's
I-
fair, Jeff. I'm gonna tell you
and-
right now, if I may, speak for a minute.
Justine, please let me finish though, and then I'll call on you again. I do think Jill is correct in her reading of the statute or the legislation in terms of regular rent stabilized /421A units do not seem to be picked up in here. Now, it's a very simple drafting change to pick them up. And one way to pick them up would be to insert before quasi-rent stabilized unit. You could simply insert rent stabilized unit, comma. And that would pick up 421A.
No, because it also says it has to be in a regulatory agreement.
Well, we need to make sure that the or whatever, you
Yeah,
know.
you'd have to put that in as well. Otherwise, it would have to be
Right, that
not
doesn't
between the
modify
state.
everything.
Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
This,
But since I interrupted Justine, now please speak. And then I'll call
Thank
on
you.
Mary.
I'm sorry, I'm very frustrated. I did unmute, I thought. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
We hear you.
Okay. Sorry. Jill, I apologize for jumping down your throat. I know you're supporting the condo owners. Last time this came before this board, having people who were questioning about the renters killed this whole thing. So number one, that is part of why I'm angry and furious, because even if it's going to save someone who is qualified in Gateway Plaza or Tribeca Point, which I believe is the one that's got 72 units under contract with the Battery Park City Authority, the one it's at the corner of Chambers and North End Avenue. I always get the name wrong. That building would be renters assuming their income qualifies, would be qualified, and the 72 people, okay? There are condo owners who are supporting this, whether it helps them or not, because what it is doing is exactly what happened with Gateway Plaza, which is preserving residential continuity. With the Solaire, for example, which is under 421A right now, it is converting or has converted to co-op condo, and there are people who live there who are still under rent stabilization, not quasi, not with a contract with the Battery Park City Authority, but there are hopes and negotiations in place to get them covered by a contract with the Battery Park City Authority, because 421A expires in like 2029, 2030, something like that. So it would not be very long of coverage. And I think what infuriates me the most about the argument in this situation is this particular legislation as written, and I am fine with adding the language. You know, I do see an or here, so it's not just rent, it's not just Gateway. It is an or between quasi rent stabilization or rent restrictions on annual increases pursuant to a contract with the Battery Park City Authority. So that's or. And yeah, we can ask the government officials to add in also rent regulated pursuant to whatever laws we have, fine. But my frustration here is it is helping some people, it is hurting nobody. And each and every person, whether it is Gateway, Battery Point, Tribeca Point, or the Solaire, the ground rent is knowable. I personally haven't done the math to know what that ground rent per person, per apartment is. They know, the Battery Park City Authority knows, because the building knows what they're paying and is allocated by percentage square footage of the building. And so it is possible to be done. You were 100% correct to say that someone who is an individual owner or a sponsor like Milford Management, Douglas Elliman, whoever they are, they will not be, anyone who's renting from them, number one, would probably not be income eligible because the rent is too high. They wouldn't be able to live in the apartment and have under 150% of AMI, step one. But step two, those are not qualified because they are not the owners. And those renters are not subject to those rules. I thought that Senator Kavanaugh's office did an amazing job of trying to thread the needle to make sure that only people who needed the help got it, and the people who didn't need the help were not impacted. And I think the legislation, again, fine with whatever's changed and want to add, but I think it's vitally important that we support this with a resolution, and we support it as it will pass, okay? If the Senate has managed to get it through this way, let's support it, and then we come back again and fight for the next battle if we have to have it. Or we push the authority, which I still think that this community board, as well as our elected officials, should be doing to make sure that they preserve every inch of affordability in Battery Park City, with the Solaire for 50 Battery Place, for 70 Battery Place, for the people who have the 421A-ish regulations. It is their purview to do this. They can. They were so proud of Battery Point, or Tribeca Point, whatever the heck it is. Let's make them be proud again and do the next one. Thank you. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
That's fine, Justine. Marianne, you had a comment.
I don't remember it. I mean, I think it's, we're past that.
In terms of the point about people under actual rent stabilization as opposed to a regulatory agreement with the authority, do we know how many units those are and when they expire?
For solar?
Yeah.
15 apartments in the Solaire, 15 apartments in the Rhodesian. These are moderate income families. And this all came about due to the Liberty bonds after 9/11. So these are families who came in, and the north end of Battery Park City has currently, in those two buildings, 30. They're both set to expire 2029 for Solaire and 2030, I believe, for Rhodesian. So this, you know, I'm in here in support of this. For us, it's moot because we will be out in 2.5 years unless the Battery Park City Authority.
And then you would qualify under the language of the statute if you enter into an agreement with the authority to preserve those.
Yes, yeah, but that's, you know, yet to be seen. But I do support it. I am, for those of you who don't know, I was Community Board 1 member for 12 years. I'm currently a district leader, Assembly District 61, which is Battery Park City. And that's since 2016, so that's 10 years.
What's your name?
Dennis Gold, yeah. So the people who come to me almost daily, one of the major concerns that I'm hearing is fear and insecurity about housing, whether they are retirees on fixed incomes or younger families with, children in FPS 89. They are worried that they're not going to be able to stay. And they come to me because, well, I have a voice, I'm afraid to speak, and I'm a pretty good writer. So I am a recent retiree, so that frees me up to be a lot more visible and a lot more vocal. So I've got 2.5 years to do right by not only my family, but the other families that look to me for leadership.
Okay. Betty?
Now, I'll be the bad guy. I'm incredibly opposed to this at every level. But I want to go after the condos, first of all. Why are you giving any kind of break? And it's not large, but nevertheless, the point is they'll be paying less for the resiliency project. They will be paying less for parks. They'll be paying less all of the shared burdens. To say that no one's going to pick up the charge, of course somebody is. Somebody's got to cover these costs, but these people have equity in their units. Why do they not have to touch their equity? Because you want to let them save more of their cash from day to day to have more for their heirs. Why is this top of my mind? Because I'm in this age group. I'm writing, I don't make any money. I live off of my savings from the past. To say that if I ran out of savings and my savings got dwindling and I didn't want to make as much payment, I have equity that I could cash in. Why should people with condo equity be able to set that aside and not touch it? So that they can get some of their fees for ground rents waived. It just makes no sense to me at all.
Mary, let me call Mary.
As a condo owner, I have 2 comments. One is that the purpose of this is to preserve the neighbors we have. Let me finish. People are getting forced out because they can't afford to live here. Number one. Number two, with the ground rent changes that were coming, I did a spreadsheet and I did a way within my building, my condo building, that people could figure out exactly the dollar impact on that when it goes up and then going forward. And I realized that what we pay to Battery Park City Authority is 70% of our monthly common charges, which shocks me, which means we have 30% remaining to run the building. And, a lot of that 30% is governed by union contracts, because a lot of what we pay is the people who work there. And there are fewer and fewer possibilities to save money, to keep costs low, so that people who've lived there a while and have contributed to the community and made it a good place to live are not getting forced out. Some people do have equity. Now, you talk about condo equity. What do you mean by condo equity? I mean, I have savings and IRAs, but am I gonna sell my condo just?
It's a reverse mortgage.
I don't think that's gonna keep people stable. It's not gonna give us the stability that.
But your neighbor is paying it for you.
Let's don't depress out here.
Okay.
I want to clarify, I'm calling you next, Joe. I just want to clarify that what this does is that it would freeze ground rent for qualifying people. It does not freeze pilot.
No.
Pilot is property tax. And so it's not touched, but go ahead, Phil.
So I just feel the need to qualify, kind of qualify what I've said, because I kind of feel a little ranted at. I very clearly support this. I want my neighbors to stay here. I think it's fair, and I think it's the kind of negotiation that big companies do with the authority all the time. what I feel kind of ranted about is it says this is a bill for renters. And my only point here was that it really doesn't incorporate all the 421As or the other rent stabilized people in the community. It's called for renters, but it's a very, very teeny part of that. So if it's supposed to be a bill for both, it should be a bill for both.
Well,
That was it.
it's.
But not at the exclusion or in no way to harm the condo owners. And I want to be very clear about that. So, my point isn't to disrupt this resolution going through.
Janice.
We do have
So
people in the
my
audience there.
Condo owners, the condo owners that will benefit from this are part of the 150 AMI, which means they're clearly not wealthy people.
Yeah.
It's designed to help the middle class. So
That's right.
Yeah.
I represent condo owners and I represent renters. So if this helps 3 families or 30 families, I feel the responsibility to support it because, like Justine said, it hurts no one. I don't think it hurts anyone personally. You may disagree. Now Jill makes some great points. Well, she's got a brilliant mind. If we could tweak the language a bit to open it up to more renters, I even love it more. But either way, I'm supporting it because I'm in the business of helping people.
I think we have some hands up online here.
Very well done.
Mark, looks like you have your hand up again.
Thank you. I just want to remind and reinforce Tammy's, Tammy's question during the financial report about how Battery Park was originally envisioned, about a third luxury, a third middle class, and a third affordable, or whatever those tranches are named. And I think I'd really like to encourage this committee and this group to also keep that in mind, and rather than just throwing it to Rami as a question to Rami about how is he going to address that going forward, or if he's going to address it going forward, I think Senator Kavanaugh is trying to help us address that, and I think we ought to try and recommit to what we believe Battery Park is supposed to be. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. We have a number of people. Elizabeth from the Soundings, unmute yourself.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me. I too just wanted to speak in support of this bill because I know we're a small building. We got impacted. We were doing our hallway renovation when the tariffs were in, which impacted us. We had a reason a pipe broke, which impacted our gym. We want to keep our neighborhood and have people be able to stay here. And so we feel like this bill will allow those who most need at least some help right now, especially in this time where costs are going up. Everyone's trying to do the best they can. And so it might not be perfect, but I think even this version being ready to go, let's help get some people get some relief and keep pushing and keep trying to help keep Battery Park City affordable for all of us for many years to come. This is our neighborhood and our community, and we hope to keep it that way. So thank you.
Thank you. Nadia Alamova.
Yes, hi. I'm a president. My name is Nadia Alamova, and I'm president of the board at Liberty House. I want to state that we fully support this bill. Liberty House faces a 55% ground rent increase effective June 1st, and it will threaten long-term residents, retirees, and those on fixed incomes. Based on our estimates, this increase averages about $168 per month per unit, or roughly $2,000, or to be precise, $2,000.16 per year. Several of or many of our owners qualify for this bill. For reference, it protects condo owners whose household income is at or below $170,000 for a one-person household and $194,000 for a two-person household based on 2025 numbers. I would like to add this. Passing this bill is crucial for us to help those residents or those unit owners stay in their homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason Stevens. Jason?
He may have put his hand down. I don't know. Jason, raise your hand again.
Back
Press the
later.
button, I think.
Oh, hello?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, okay, sorry, the unmute me button only just popped up now. I was trying to talk before, but
I follow.
anyway, thank you all very much. My name is Jason Stevens. My wife and I own at 200 Rector Place just for a year or so. And we feel strongly that this is a bill that we should support for all the reasons very well articulated by Marianne and by Mark in particular. This is a kind of a unique community, and preserving a sort of diverse resident base is important. We spent 20 years in Chelsea in a building that started out as a reflection or microcosm of New York as a whole. And over 20 years, it completely shifted over to something unrecognizable, where only very wealthy people could live in that building. We'd not like to see the same thing happen in Battery Park City. So thank you.
Thank you. Justine, looks like you're the last person with a hand up.
So Catherine Napolitano had her hand up, and I think somebody just unmuted her.
Oh, go ahead, Catherine.
Thank you very much. Well, I want to thank you all. And I know, Justine, you've done such a tremendous amount of work. I want to reiterate that this is so important, and that while, edits to the bill, if we can do them, that would be great, but not at the risk of jeopardizing this thing not getting put through. There'll be more, and there'll be additional opportunities. And so, they say, risking perfection, for the good. So I'm hoping that this goes through. It's so important. We need to be able to stay here. We need to be able to afford to live here. We've been here over 20 years. And so, everyone, and Jill, I understand what you were saying too. So hopefully this can get through, really. And thank you all so much for this work.
Thank you. Okay. Justine.
Thank you so much. And thank you. I'm sorry. Excuse me for getting so agitated. I really am in a lot of pain right now. So I am having trouble with my regulation. So excuse me, Jill. You know I love you. And I thank everybody who came in and spoke. And I also want to make a note, and Zach, you can tell us how many people thus far have sent in letters or notes to the board. They didn't have time to sit around and call in, or didn't want to come to the meeting, but they did send a brief note in support of this. I know my phone has been popping during this conversation, so you said you were going to make them part of the record, and we could just put it in. There's that. Plus, I know that, so I'd like to say this for Zach's purposes. So far, we've heard from the representative of the Soundings building, which is 280 Rector Place. We've heard from representatives from 200 Rector. I sent you an email to that effect where the board was supporting this. We've heard from Liberty House. So that's 3 different buildings in Battery Park City that have said, and 100% coming forward to support this, condo buildings in Battery Park City. So we're not just talking about the few people who have called in, we're talking about the boards of those buildings who have said, we as a board support this legislation for our condo owners. And again, there's no shade on adding the language or changing it. I just fear that Senator Kavanaugh's office has gotten this through and has worked really hard to get it through as written. So I don't know what ability he'll have to change it. But I can tell you that as written, it was pushed forward to the Assembly, and Senator Fall is skeptical about this passing or not passing, and not sure that there's enough support for this to go through. So part of why I'm kind of adamant and wanting it to be very clear and us to present as much of a united front as possible is to let Assemblymember Fall know that this is important to folks in Battery Park City, rich or poor. And I don't totally appreciate the fact that there are people who are retired and on fixed incomes, but whose fixed incomes are a lot. I wish that were me. It's not. Okay. Well, and to be fair, this will not benefit me. Okay. For reasons that are no one's business. This is not going to benefit me. So I am not fighting for myself at all. I am fighting for my neighbors. I'm fighting for people who would benefit and be able to stay in their homes. And so So yeah, I really, I see no harm and I just think that this should pass. But Zach, I don't know what you want to do with those letters or how you present it or whatever. But we do have support beyond who's in the meeting right now.
So, well, first of all, so Justine, I'm going to move that we pass a resolution favoring it as written for the reasons that we've discussed. It could certainly be improved, but it's already passed the Senate. If it's going to pass the Assembly, the easiest route to pass it as is, rather than to tweak it and then have to send it back to the Senate. And we can then hold a vote on it. Zach, do you have numbers of letters that have, do we have people that have written in beyond the ones who have signed up here? Or put another way, we can simply
Emails,
recite,
yeah,
we can recite them in the whereases. We don't need to go through all of them now, but we certainly had a large turnout. I see that we've had, at least at one point, there were roughly 25 people on, including Justine, that I think the vast majority of them were here for this this issue, which we could recite in the whereas. Do I have a second on the
Second.
motion? Okay, so, let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, no, 7 of us here. So, all in favor, raise your hands. And I assume Nancy and Justine. All opposed? I see one. I don't think there's anybody left, but any abstentions or recusals? Resolution passes. Thank you all. So now Yves. Tell us
Thanks,
what's going
everybody.
on in the South.
Sure, you can go up the deck, please.
Sure.
Count the votes. That's it.
Okay.
And Jeff, those letters are sort of still coming in. So
Okay, all right, so,
accumulate them, share them with you. I think we have about 10 now.
and Dennis, I'm sure you can communicate with Fall's office our sentiments.
Yes, thank you so much.
Sure,
Good to
thank
see you
you.
again.
Good to see you too. Oh, there we go.
Good evening for everybody who hasn't met me before. My name is Yves Vivi. I'm Senior Director of Infrastructure for Battery Park City Authority. I am overseeing the construction of the South Battery Park City Resiliency Project, and let's bring you where we're at. So, as I mentioned in the last time we met, the project is split up into three areas: the Wagner Park MJH portion, the Pavilion, and the Pier Plaza and the Battery. As many of you know, Wagner Park opened up last year. We're about 99% complete with that work. Right now, we're just finalizing as-built documents, closing out the financials. We're doing trainings. Pretty much all work in the field is completed. For the Pavilion, we're pretty much done with all the work on that. There are some minor punches that's still happening within the restaurant space in preparation of that operator beginning their construction, but that project is also nearing its final completion. For the Pier Plaza and the Battery portion of the project, we're about 80% complete. We are aiming to have the entire area opened up before the end of the year. It will be opened up in a phased approach, which I have a slide at the end of the deck showing what that phased approach looks like. And just so everybody's aware, that includes the Pier Plaza area, the Battery, the near surface isolation work that's along West Street, as well as the flood wall construction that goes on through the entire alignment from the end of Wagner Park all the way through to the end of where our project meets the Hunter Roberts project that the Parks Conservancy is doing over there. So in terms of when that package 4 area, which is the Pier Plaza and that the battery will be completed, we're still targeting that mid 2026. We started doing night work to ensure that we make that date. And right now, the lawn is closed. That was reinstalled at the end of last fall. So that is going to be installed imminently. I'm not sure if Rami has a exact date yet, but this spring the lawns throughout Wagner will reopen. So just to go through some of the images of where we're at on the project, for those that have not been to the pavilion at night, this is what it kind of looks like. We've completed a lot of the electrical work that kind of uplights the trees, and once those trees are in bloom, it'll actually be really nice to see that area. So if you guys have not been out there at night, I highly recommend it, especially along the new benches in the event serviced by the Esplanade. There are lights in those benches as well. So this is the corner portion of Wagner Park, right before Pier Plaza begins. On the left, you're seeing the stairs that lead down to where the Pier Plaza area is. And this is essentially where the final tie gate will meet up with the Wagner Park portion of it. So this work is now completed, and so everything north of Pier Plaza is done for the project. So in terms of Pier Plaza, on the left, you're looking at work that's happening within the plaza itself. This area not so long ago was a giant pit. We were installing the tie gate in that area, which was successful. So we were able to backfill. And what you're looking now is plumbing work being installed in the back. You can actually see that we've actually started to install some of the hardscape. So it won't be long before this will actually be open to everyone. On the right side, you're looking at the inlet area. We have already opened up the platform over on the east end. This is the portion of it that meets the Pier Plaza area. They backfilled throughout this entire area, and now we're working on completing the railings that are on the north side of where those guys are standing right there. So I'm not sure if everybody remembers, but Pier Plaza will have a series of steps that leads down to the entrance of Pier. The plaza is the lowest point of the entire South Resiliency project. This is why the steps are actually a built-in portion of the flood barrier system. The idea is that these kind of step up to where the flood barrier wall will be at the top of that wall, and so it's going to also create a nice little enclave area at the bottom of the steps there for when people want to congregate when it's nice out. So this is progress that we've been making on the flood wall. As I mentioned in the last meeting, the flood wall is composed of piles, which a concrete wall is formed on top of that, and then that wall is clad in stone over the last few months. We've been intricately installing this stone. The wall is not straight for the entire run. It's called this serpentine wall, and there are portions of it, that are kind of very rounded. So these pieces of stone had to be cut at very precise angles to be able to fit the alignment of the wall. And I think everybody's gonna really like, the aesthetic of this. Obviously, it is a sizable wall. We were not able to do the buried flood wall as we're able to do in Wagner Park. So this was a way kind of beautify it and make it a little bit less visually intrusive. So over the last, I want to say month and a half to 2 months, we've been doing work at night. And that's as I mentioned, is to ensure that we hit that mid 2026 date. There is no demo work happening at night, so no jackhammers, It's all excavation work, to be able to prepare, for more flood wall down the alignment. The fence that you're looking at on the back of the right image is actually, portions of the battery that are complete with the Hunter Robert projects that were already open. So once we complete our portion of it, that entire area will now be open. So this is a diagram of what late May, early June will look like. All the areas in blue will be completely opened up to the public. The area in green is going to be still under construction and will be phased every time we complete a section, we'll open it up. So the main components of that that are not open is there's 2 layers of steps on the green portion. There are steps, and also on the lower portion in blue there are also steps. The ones that I was showing you in the image before were the steps that are in blue. There's also steps in green, as well as planters and as well as bollards that also have to be installed. The idea is to have the area in green completed by the early fall. The area that you see in purple on the right will not be open when we open everything up, but it will be open sometime between when the blue opens and when the green opens. The bike lane will be maintained even though there is not a through line all the way through, because there's a portion of that area that will not be completed, but it will be fed back out onto Battery Place. And that's where we're at on the project.
Could you go back one?
Sure.
So on the lower left, that rectangle that comes into the blue, is that Pier A?
No, the Pier A building is the big rectangular square, like that notches out the
Further up, above it?
No.
That's the top.
Oh, is there a pointer? Oh, no. No. I don't think it likes that. Here, if you wanna.
Like anybody.
Pam, no, it's not just her.
I've never seen anyone just like.
No, I've never seen anything.
It's good.
So if you see that on the bottom of the bloom is there's like a curved section in the blue. Those are the steps. What you're looking at right in the middle of that curve is the entrance of Pier A.
Okay, yeah.
So what
that's
you're-
correct. So that's Pier A then.
Yeah. So what you're looking at with the little squares, that's I believe the walkway that goes around the Pier A building.
Gotcha. Okay,
I have a
and
question.
then get into the water.
The, in the part of Wagner Park that's done,
Yes.
there's a little area where you can kind of walk out over the
Yes.
water. That was open for a while, but it's been closed off with a gate, not a gate, but like a, emergency barrier of some sort. I thought it was just for the snowstorm, but it's remained closed. Do you know why it's closed?
So it was closed because there are actually gates within that area for you to be able to go out into the inlet. Those gates were malfunctioning, and so we didn't want to open it up in some sort of temporary jerry-rig condition. We want to be able to make sure that gate is secure, so that, if a child is running out and it doesn't accidentally open and somebody falls out. So it was closed for the public's safety. We're looking to have that hopefully opened up within the next few weeks.
Okay, yeah, it was nice while it lasted, but I didn't, I do remember there are some gates there. I didn't notice them. I didn't try to walk out through them.
Yeah, it was closed out of safety.
Okay. Any other questions online?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Hopefully we have, I think, maybe 1 or 2 more updates on the stop, and then everything.
And then it'll be open. Yeah, I can't wait.
And then we'll be moving on to the north and northwest.
Okay, all right.
It's a pleasure doing everybody's.
Yes.
Very riveting meeting. And if you have any other questions about the project or where we're at, just please send them in. Thanks.
All right, so Patrick, I guess you're up for the Security report?
Maybe I'll sit in his seat. I see.
Nice tie, Patrick.
Thank you. We're in spring, right?
Yes, exactly.
So as you can see, up on the graph, I'm dealing with, graffiti and that stuff. This year we had none. For the month of March, homeless, we interacted with, 17 times with homeless people. It picked up.
I'm sorry, repeated contact with people?
It would
or
be
separate?
repeated, like each shift would run into the same individual. The positive thing about the homeless right now at Battery Park City is that we're not dealing with anybody that's looking to stay overnight.
Okay.
Okay, so we had a couple before the cold that were trying to stay the whole night. So the cold, we were lucky in that we were able to convince them to go to the warming bus that was down by the Staten Island Ferry. Lost and found is obvious. We only have one item, park rules. This month we had 4. The vendors are back. That's a lot harder. I'm dealing with them right now because the streets now are back to the city. So we're dealing with the ice cream truck. So we're constantly trying to move him. And there's a little competition there between 2 ice cream trucks, and the hot dog vendor, but so far we've been lucky on getting them moved. Ticket sellers, I was actually at the first precinct meeting and they're still dealing with that. That's still a bill again in Kavanaugh's office that they're looking to move forward. I don't know how helpful that's gonna be, but because they're independent sellers. In certain ways, it's a little comical if you're down there, because when police actually made, I think, the last meeting that I was at, they arrested like 10 vendors down there, but that included also historic Battery Park. I'm dealing with it, and that's because the vendors it was more involved than just vending. Let's just leave it that way.
To the table.
And then the dogs, we're still at the issue with the dogs. Basically, Rockefeller Park up in the north end of it. In the morning, I'm busy working on that, and the issue with the dog waste being left behind, we're working on that too. That's slowly cut down a lot since the snow is gone. And of course, everybody's outraged over it.
Absolutely.
I don't understand dog owners that don't pick up, but, but that's neither here nor there.
Do you have any questions on the line?
I have a quick one, Jeff.
Yes, go ahead, Justine.
Thank you so much. Patrick, thank you. Just have a question and I want to make just a comment as what get clarification as to what the procedure is. So there was a dog, had to be a dog, that pooped in West Thames playground.
Right.
That poop was in that playground for more than 24 hours. I think it was close to 48. I think finally Ryan Torres's group was advised and it was removed and hosed down, I assume. But I do know that in real time, multiple parents went and told the Allied ambassadors, because of course, what do? They call me. I said, well, tell Allied. And they said, understandably, we are security. We are not, cleaning people. But I assumed they would tell Parks and that would mean Parks would come. And I just would love to know what the process is.
Anytime they come in, they'll notify, and we get a complaint, something like that, they'll notify Parks, right?
Okay.
we're notifying, you know, like a supervisor, so then the supervisor has to notify a team. You know, not sure about their total inner workings there, but obviously they have their teams that are working on whatever schedule, so they have to pull a team to go over there. Now, I don't know the scheduling on cleaning that park, on what they do, but we do make notifications to them all the time. I mean, we also deal with the bathrooms at 200, you know, and they do, let's just say, get clogged, and we have to put out a service and wait for the team sometimes till the next day. So,
Yeah, that makes sense.
you know, it's, you know,
I
we make a
appreciate that, Pat.
notification and we go.
Yep. No, I appreciate that, which is what I thought would happen. And I know it was a holiday weekend, and Becky, I should have copied you. I didn't. I forgot. I'm sorry. Like I said, I'm loopy. I should have copied you because I know you would have forwarded it too, and Nick's away, whatever. But and I of course could not find Ryan's email because I would have copied her directly too. But thank you, Marianne, for pushing that forward to Ryan. But it really was more than I know 100% 24 hours, and I think it was longer than that.
Well, I know,
And there
I'm
were
not sure about.
dogs in the playground, pictures of dogs in the playground, and people are still sitting there and not picking it up.
I know that, I don't know what date, whether it's the same date or the same report. Okay, I know that Parks did go there one other time on a report, and they didn't find it. Okay,
They didn't
So-
find it. Oh no. Okay, maybe they didn't
Right.
see it, but it was there.
so,
You saw the picture.
so they left.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then, you know, another report came in on another day, so I'm gonna make the assumption that everybody thought that this was a separate report or reporting something that was in the past. So then the team went and, I know we notified Parks again on another separate day, and they went there. So, you know,
Yeah.
not
Well, right.
sure if it's dealing with the same situation, but, you know, and the thing with the dogs, if they're on a leash and they turn around and they say, you know, that it's a service dog,
In the children's
there's
playground?
nothing. Right, listen, they don't even, there's really, you know, I went out there, myself personally, I was out there, what was it, like Friday? And there was a bunch of kids all enjoying over by the AstroTurf. And a kid about, I don't know, maybe a freshman in high school on a bicycle pedaling on the AstroTurf. So I saw the supervisor go and talk to him. Totally disregarded it. I went over and talked to him and said, hey, you're gonna rip up the AstroTurf. So it wasn't even his bicycle, it was somebody else's bicycle that came over, and I was like, you're gonna lose the bicycle, and that's when they left. You know, because I was like, it's not gonna happen, you know, and then the next thing, they're in 200, in the bathroom at 200, and I'm like, I just looked at the safety ambassador that was at the desk, and I said, if they look to come back here again today, tell them no. I'm coming in, because the next thing, they're gonna do damage. And you just know it's coming, because there's actually, and I'm sure everybody's run into this, there's no respect anymore on, you know, at that certain age group. So.
Kids these days.
Yeah. Yeah, no, thank you,
All
Patrick.
playing and having fun, I mean, you know, there had to be over 25 kids in that little patch there playing, and everybody getting along fine, and this guy zigzagging in between them on a bicycle. So.
No, you're exactly right. No respect. You're exactly right. Thank you.
Just on the poop in the playground. You know, I understand why people think that it's Parks Maintenance job to clean it up. But, you know, I'm a parent and I had kids, you know, playground. If that had been in the playground, my kid was playing in there, I would have picked it up. I wouldn't have just stared at it for 24 hours.
No,
for
I agree
somebody
with you,
else to
Jeff.
pick it up.
I would have picked it up too. I mean, clearly I wasn't there, but I would have picked it up myself, but I still would have wanted it hosed down after the fact because it's still, residue was still there.
That's true, but
At least they.
people
But I
do
would
have
have picked it up,
capability
yeah.
to apply some common sense sometimes to urban
Yeah.
problems. But, yes, Betty?
If someone says, this is service dog, what follow-up question is asked of them?
Can't ask any.
Yes, you
any-
can. That's
Well-
exactly why I brought it up. Because I said, since disability is kind of my area, that's where my career was.
Okay, so what can we do?
Somebody here, because the authority of the legal department, when I first brought it up with them, saying that when we ask them for ID, we were told no. Right, you can't ask them for ID if they're not wearing, because my thing is, you know,
Why don't you can't
they used to have.
Special vest.
Around the car,
No, they don't
the
have-
dogs, they used to have a little, thing on it, or they had a vest or something. They were like, no.
You want to know from the ADA what you can do? Sure. What you can do is, if it truly is, many people call it comfort dogs, service dogs, which is a complete misnomer, and they are not protected by the Americans with Disabilities.
Okay.
Comfort dog.
Service dog, yeah, if someone gets nervous, or they like to have to.
Yeah, it's not the same
They
level.
have, what activity of daily living are they trained to do for you? Is what you can do under the ADA, because that's what qualifies them.
What are
as
they
a service
trained to
dog.
do?
What are they specifically trained to do? And it could be something such as, they can sniff the person, they can help detect,
Heart attack.
well, no, not heart attack, but
Seizures, I think, seizures, right, Betty?
Yeah, blood sugar.
Gonna have a,
I think it's not just
yeah.
related to physical, there could be things, but the
Yeah.
fact is they're trained to do something. It may not be go get my slippers. But it's, well, it's already what you do retrieve.
What are they trained to do?
For people
Yeah.
with quadriplegia and really no hand control, they do go pick up things and bring them to you.
Sure, of course.
So they go do retrieve.
Okay.
So you're allowed
But-
to ask
that's
what
the
kind, what
question.
job do they do?
Trained.
That's for sure.
Is there specific language?
If they're a service dog, then they are trained to do something, otherwise they're not qualified as a service dog.
Okay, so you can say, what is your dog trained to do?
Yes, if you want to look up the Access Board, which is the group in the federal government that looks at reinterpreting the Americans with Disabilities Act. Because if you think,
Sure.
yeah, the ADA is
Oh, it
over
is the
there.
lawyer first.
They go way back before the ADA, I remember even that.
Yeah.
But the Access Board is what really kind of rework it, something that turns into legislation. A lot of them are rules, the Access Board develops and passes, and those become the same as law, they're enforceable.
Well, this is, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you
So
for
don't
that.
look up under the Access.
All right,
Board.
well, that's a good suggestion.
That's good to know. Thank you.
Because-
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, it's something they can do, it may or may not be satisfactory, but it truly is a comfort dog, they're gonna say, but they keep me calm. That's a giveaway business in the service.
Listen, you know, just turn around and telling someone, you know, even, you know, it's a service dog, but they have to be on a leash.
It's true.
So, you know, I actually had somebody write a huge complaint about a supervisor talking to him who had the dog off leash. He had the dog off leash, saying it's a service dog. Up in Wagner Park, when it was, you know, the winter fencing. Okay. So he had him pushed so completely wrong, right? So he turned around and I'm reporting you to this, and this, and, you know, four paragraphs in an email. Because they can, you know, safety ambassadors, I tell them, give my name, give my email, give my telephone number, I have no problem with it. You know, I'm reporting you to whatever, and,
Who are they reporting you to?
oh, the authority, and, you know.
That's my whole point, is what is the dog, or whatever the animal is, what do they qualified to do that makes them a service dog, make them a service animal.
So
They won't even go in the right direction,
Yeah.
the response.
I know about 40% of them.
They're regulars.
But he, what is it trained to do? That's open-ended enough, but if it's a true service dog, they know exactly what you're talking about. Otherwise, you can shut them down because everybody's looking for these, make those excuses, and that'll put them off guard. And they'll start the rest of the threats, which takes so much time.
So, you know, but just to end that story, I mean, they wanted, you know, me fired and the safety ambassador, and I said, listen.
Well, you're still here.
I reported it to the company. It's like, what? So I already reported it to the company. So completely off. He said, what? I said, I already reported it. You said you were gonna go to the authority and you were going to the ADA. I already reported it.
Wait a second.
The next thing I got a phone call from
Part
that.
of the ADA anyway.
Right. I mean.
All right, guys, that's enough for us.
These dogs.
So Becky, do we have?
I got a couple quick things. Hi, I'm here as a team unit Sportone. Just a couple quick things going on in the neighborhood. We're getting ready to kind of ramp up in the South Cove neighborhood on the resiliency works. We've been out notifying residents. We also have a round of postcards that are getting ready to go out very soon to the entirety of the southern neighborhood, so not just Project Path, but nearby as well, just so folks know when they go outside what they see is happening.
You said South Cove, is that gonna be?
That's the
cut
reach.
off?
Yeah, just that South Cove Reach areas where the work will start over there. So it won't all be cut off, but it will be restricted because it's construction work. So that's coming up, but it hasn't started yet, but just so you guys know, and like I said, we're sending out some stuff very shortly. Another thing on the resiliency front that I wanted to make sure everyone knew about, we have re-upped our resiliency drop-ins and we've included evening hours as well. So starting tomorrow, Tuesdays will be from 5 to 6 p.m. at 200 Rector. On Fridays will be from 12 to 1 at 6 River Terrace, except for Juneteenth on the 19th. We are not having any resiliency drop-ins in honor of the holiday. And on some of our more fun stuff, Earth Month has started this month, so we have programming beginning on the 14th, from Meet the Beekeeper to checking out our composters to events for the kids to our Steam Dream event, which is always really fun. Kids get to create and be inventors and create things out of recycled materials, so it's a really good time for them as well. And one really cool thing that we're doing this year on actual Earth Day itself, we're having a panel at Wagner Park called, let's see, I wrote myself a note here, Building a Greener Waterfront, the story of Wagner Park. We'll have several different folks from SiteWorks, we'll have people from Waterfront Alliance, we'll also have Tom Pfeiffer there, I believe, who designed the pavilion building itself. So it should be an interesting conversation. We invite all of you to come. I believe that's at 4 p.m. And we also have all these events listed on our main website under the Earth Month tile. So please come out. And that's what I've got for you guys. So.
Okay,
Thank you, Becky.
thank you. Thank
So-
you for staying.
They wanna join your community board.
I was gonna say your face and play an aspirin now.
Trying to recruit me.
Just thanks.
Oh, geez, the comfort dog.
Thank you, guys. Really appreciate you all.
Thank you, Justine. Feel
Bye-bye,
better.
Justine.
Oh, feel better.
Okay.
Thanks.
This
I'm hanging.
concludes
We're
the
good,
meeting.
right?
Yeah, we're good. We're done.
Unless you want to end.
Hold on a second. Dan, did you have anything to add? Yeah.
No, I just wanted to say thank you also.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Okay, good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night and good luck.